it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. Pierre McGuire, Jimmy Murphy here. Pierre is back up at Colgate, I believe, right?
I'm in Hamilton, New York at Colgate University. Jimmy, pumped up, big weekend of college hockey, and I only get to see one game here live. I've got some work I got to do in some other places, but I'm looking forward to the game tonight.
Nice. Well, you tell Coach Harder we said hello, and thank you for allowing the office to be used for this.
Yes.
Hope he's doing well. And speaking of college hockey coaches, we got a great guest lined up for On Campus Friday. Brad Berry, the coach of the North Dakota Fighting Hawks. Man, I was so scared I was going to say
you almost went there.
I know. I was like, don't do it. It will always be in my head that way, unfortunately. But anyhow, yeah, he will join us. We're looking forward to that. They are now, Pierre, number 2 in the poll, but more importantly, number 2 in the pairwise rankings. They've really turned it around since the new year. They are 5-0-2, and they're coming off a big weekend last weekend where they beat Denver twice. And, of course, they are playing at Miami of Ohio this weekend. Pierre, this should be a good one.
Well, it's going to be great with Coach Berry. I'm a huge fan. He does an amazing job there. His staff with Dane Jackson and Dylan Simpson, they're tremendous as well. What blows me away is how many alumni, and Coach Berry's an alumni there too, how many alumni actually go back to Dakota and coach there and live in Grand Forks. You know, it's a place that's near and dear to my heart. I've told you that both on and off the air. I've spent a lot of time there over the course of my life, and big fan of what he's done with his program. But what I'm a real big fan of, Jimmy, when you deal with Coach Berry, you deal straight up man to man, and there's no messing around. And I really admire that part of him as a person and the character that he has.
That's good. And well, let's bring him on right now to talk about that and all things North Dakota and college hockey. Joining us now is head coach Brad Berry of the North Dakota Fighting Hawks. I did it again. It's taken me years to get used to that, Coach. But welcome aboard to the Eye Test, Coach. We appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks a lot, man, and thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yes.
Brad, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're playing at Miami, and just so the people at home know, I texted Coach Berry and right away got back. He said, yeah, I'll be on. No problem. And I said, I know you got a game. He says, not a problem. I'll be there. So thank you, Brad. Thanks a lot.
Anytime, Pierre, you've been an ambassador to our program, so thank you very much.
You know, you heard Pierre, I'm sure, coming on there right before we pulled you in. He's talking about North Dakota and how many people go back there, and you're one of those people as well. And Pierre has told me, too, about the area in Grand Forks and just the hockey atmosphere, the culture there. What brought you back? What was the biggest thing that you think is why your life ended up going back there?
Well, I think I don't think I know it's the culture. I firmly believe it's the culture and the people that come through North Dakota. And I was blessed enough to be recruited by Gino Gasparini, John Marks, and Dean Blaze back a long time ago, and it impacted my life. It shaped my life as a person and as a hockey player. And playing 13 years of pro hockey, seeing a lot of different things come and go. It wasn't too hard of a decision to go back there and start my coaching career under Dean Blaze at the time. And I'm grateful for that. And I owe a lot to that program.
Coach, you're number 2 in the polls. Were you expecting to be this high at the start of the year?
Well, you know what, when you bring in 14 new players, and that doesn't happen every year where you bring 14 new players, but, you know, with what's happened since COVID, with the transfer portal, always with our program, we have players that leave early for the NHL signings to play in the NHL and the American League. You know, it was one of those years where we had a mass exodus of players for a good reason, graduation, guys signing pro contracts, and we had to bring 14 players in, and we couldn't bring 14 true freshmen or freshmen in. We brought in 7 transfers and 7 freshmen, which is a big freshman class. And, you know, when you're asking about being number 2 in the country, I think that's just a measure of a point in time right now. We still have a long way to go to get to playoffs and a long way to go to get to what we want to do. And again, we just got to keep our foot on the gas here.
What's been in this current stretch, as I mentioned, coming in, you're 5-0-2 since the new year, Coach. What has helped you put together that little streak that you're on right now?
I think the buy-in from our players. You know, last year, you know, every year we measure ourselves in winning championships and hanging banners. Last year we didn't get to that level. We didn't get to play in the national tournament. That stung. And I think the guys peeling the layers back. And I think part of that is us as a staff doing an internal search on us as a staff on what we need to do better and look in the mirror first. And our play away from the puck get a lot better. I thought we have some really good offensive players, but the commitment to play defense in your end of the rink to earn the opportunity to have the puck to go up and score goals was the biggest thing for us. And our guys have bought in. They've done a lot of the habits and details of defending to allow us to be where we're at.
Coach, there's so many legendary rinks in college hockey, and you didn't play in Engelstadt, but you've coached in Engelstadt. Tell the fans at home the magic of Ralph Engelstadt Arena.
Well, I guess, I've become accustomed to it right now. So if you were a new person or a person that's never been into the Ralph and come in for a game, I think you'd be blown away. And it was none more evident than this past weekend playing against Denver, who's a longstanding rival. How packed, how loud it was, how intense it was, and what a special feeling that was. And again, I'd probably invite anybody that has never seen it to come down. And Pierre, you saw it firsthand in the World Juniors in 2005 with Crosby and probably one of the best Canadian World Junior teams around, winning it there. It was an amazing experience at that time.
That was the best Canadian team that ever went. And the reason why it was, there was no NHL that year. So all the great players, Shea Weber, Dion Phaneuf, Ryan Getzlaff, Mike Richards, Jeff Carter, Corey Perry. Those guys weren't in the NHL. They were playing in the World Junior. Just like Ovechkin and Malkin were playing for the Russians. I mean, it was unbelievable that year. But I can just say this, Jimmy, and I mean this, and Coach knows I'm a huge fan. The atmosphere at that World Junior, and I've been at that tournament since 1989, it's never been like that before. And it's never been like it since. I can just tell you that. It was amazing. The people in Grand Forks and the people from north of the border too, Coach. They drink all the beer in Grand Forks.
That's the other thing, Pierre, is, we're 1 hour from the Canadian border. We're 2 hours from the great city of Winnipeg. And, the influx of the Canadians that came down was amazing. And it's an experience we'll never forget.
Now, Pierre, you told me, we had Ben Barr on from Maine, and you told me what a great environment that is and how the whole town or city is always focused. Like, that's the big event every week. Is that how it is in Grand Forks as well?
Yeah, except double the size.
Uh-huh.
The Ralph has almost 12,000 people, Coach. Unless you made some adjustments, I think 12 is about the number, right?
Yeah, it's 12,000. The population of Grand Forks, North Dakota is probably around 70 or 75,000. And to pack a facility of 12,000 every Friday and Saturday is simply amazing. And you know what, we kind of have an analogy here that, if you want to be a hockey player, if you want to get a great education, there's not a lot of things to do in Grand Forks, North Dakota, other than develop your skills, win championships, and get a great education. And, we allude ourselves to a little bit like the Green Bay Packers of the NFL. The legendary, I guess, tradition and legacy they have in Green Bay in the NFL. And that's kind of what we are here at Grand Forks, North Dakota with hockey, college hockey.
Jimmy, you know what's really cool about going there and seeing the school? When you get to the Grand Forks airport, you see these little green airplanes taking off and landing. They actually have an aeronautics school at Grand Forks, at University of North Dakota. They teach people how to be commercial airplane pilots. Wow. Right, Coach?
Yeah, that's exactly true, Pierre. And, we're proud of that. We're the #1 aviation school in the U.S., and you know what, to be a pilot or to get a career in aviation, it's a lot of demand on your time. Not a lot of hockey players go through it just because of the demands in the hockey side of it and training and going to school. Louis Jamernick in our group here from Calgary, Alberta, is in the middle of his academic career going through and being a commercial pilot. And he does an amazing job. So he's leading the way, hopefully, for some more hockey players to be pilots here.
Yeah, that's cool.
Coach, I want to ask you about Jackson Blake. If you could tell us a little bit about him. He's leading your team in points right now. What is it that makes him so good?
Just his competitive nature, the fire that he possesses, not only in games but practices. He had an amazing freshman year last year, and he's taken that right up another level here his sophomore year, his second year here, and he loves to be the guy. He loves to be on the ice. He loves to be in those situations, and there's not too many guys, your first couple of years that you make an impact, because you go to college hockey here, and you're playing some players that are up to 23, 24 years old, and when you come maybe as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, that's giving away a lot of age and a lot lot of physical maturity as far as who you're playing against. He's done an amazing job of getting to a top level. And it's funny when he gets to the bench. He's like a racehorse. He wants to be back on the ice again. And I remember the last time we had somebody like that. His name was Brock Besser. He was he back to the bench.
He's pretty good.
You have to turn him in. And again, I think it's just because of that competitive nature and that fire that they have.
Coach, who's a better player, Jason or Jackson? Jason Blake or Jackson, the father or the son?
Well, I think if you ask Jason, he'll say himself probably. But you know what, Jason, I got to commend Jason because back in the day, the way the game was played, he wasn't a big body, and he had to play a hard, heavy game, and the rules probably restricted a lot of smaller bodies to play in the NHL, and he found a way to be an impactful player. So I got to commend Jason. But I think Jackson, I think his full package, his hockey sense, his playmaking ability, his competitiveness, I think Jackson's an elite player.
Jimmy, I got to ask the coach this. This is really a good one. Coach, there are not a lot of guys that are coaching Division I college hockey, and an alumni of their team is actually the mayor of the town. How much do you talk to Brandon Bochenski, the former NHL player, former member of the University of North Dakota
and
team
that you're
coaching?
Yeah, absolutely, Brandon. I guess if you would ask me when Brandon came through college, and he was an outstanding hockey goal scorer, he played with Zach, same line as Zach Parise, and they put up a ton of points and had success here. But if you would ask me if you'd be the mayor of our city a few years later, I'd call you crazy. But at the end of the day, I'm telling you, what a sharp mind he is. What a focused young man and vision. Like, he's taken the Grand Forks, North Dakota to another level as far as being a city and progressive in where we live here. So he's done an amazing job. And one of the things, a little story about Brandon was, we try to pay tribute to our former players that come through North Dakota, and we try to emulate what Chicago Blackhawks do in the one last shift, or one more shift it is, when players come back and they throw the full pads on and the jersey on, and after pregame warm-up before the national anthem, we introduce our former players, and they skate a couple laps and stand on the blue line for the national anthem. And I tell you what, Brandon Bochenski can still play the game. I know he played City League in Grand Forks, and I asked him, I said, hey, don't play one more shift. We'd love to have you a few more shifts. I know he has a competitive nature. He wanted to as well.
So, Jimmy, just before you get to a question, I got to ask, because Coach is talking about Brandon, and I was a big fan when he played both in college and in pro. Coach, there's a lot of rumor out there that major junior hockey players may become eligible to play Division I college hockey. How much will that change how you recruit?
Yeah, you know what, Pierre, that's a great question. And I think, first to answer that part of it, I think there's some discussions that are going on that are pretty valid as far as the reasons why, and the opportunity to bring players in that have made a decision to play major junior hockey. So that's going on right now. I think it will change a little bit. I think as the way we recruit and different things like that. It opens up the pool of a lot of players, and it gives I guess an option for some of these players to play NCAA hockey at a later time in their hockey careers. So, I think there's a lot of things going on, discussions about it, but it will change us immensely here as far as how we recruit, probably.
I agree 100%.
Coach, we always like to ask our coaches that we bring on just sort of their journey of how they got to get into coaching. So, what was the thing that propelled you to this job and this passion that you have for coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think about it a lot, having the opportunity to be where I am, I'm very grateful for it. And just to kind of how it started was after I left college hockey, I played 13 years of pro hockey, and I did it kind of backwards. I think the majority of my career was in the NHL to start with. And then eventually I went down to the minors, and it was at a time where I was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I was with the Dallas Stars organization at the time, and it was Doug Armstrong and Les Jackson were running the organization. And they told me, they said, great people, great friends, great people, unbelievable leaders. And they said to me, hey, we're moving in another direction. We're going to get some other players, some younger players. You did a really good job for us, but we want you to help our young guys in the minors. And for me, I thought I could still play a little bit more. As a player, you always think you can. Yes. And it was kind of a tough pill to swallow. And so I talked with my wife, and at the end of the day, we had one young daughter at the time, and we moved up and we went to Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I really wasn't sure how it was going to go. And I'll tell you what, I absolutely loved it. I mean, we had guys like Jamie Langenbrunner and Marty Turco and a lot of impactful players. And you know what? I got into it. I love being around those guys and love sharing some of my experience as a pro player to try to help those guys. And those guys went on to play a lot of I guess NHL seasons, and it stirred the fire in me as far as trying to go into the development side. And then you know, I had 2 back surgeries. I couldn't play anymore in the minors. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then finally Dean Blaze, early August of 2000, he calls and says, "Hey, I need an assistant coach back here. Do you want to coach with me?" And it took me about 0.2 seconds to say. And that's one of the decisions I never asked my wife.
Just got to do it sometimes.
Yeah, we're moving back to Grand Forks, and it's been coaching ever since. So I think it was Kalamazoo, Michigan, and the Dallas Stars kind of getting me going as far as, and then obviously great University of North Dakota, Dean Blaze is bringing me back.
Good stuff.
I don't think you could have 2 better mentors than Coach Gasparini and Dean Blaze. I just mean that. You know, I remember Dean Blaze from so many different places, whether it was in Nebraska, Omaha, in the USHL, in Columbus, and even coaching Team USA at the World Junior, where they won a gold medal in Saskatoon. But the thing that blows me away about Dean is how much he cared about the people that he coached. And Brad, you can speak to that. I mean, just a phenomenal human being.
Well, you know what? He spoke from the heart, and he reacted from the heart. And I think in this day and age, I think a lot of times you don't see that on a consistent basis. And you know, I remember he would speak his mind to players. You know, if they weren't giving it their all, or they weren't being team first. And you know, when you talk about North Dakota, that the common thread with a lot of players coming through here, it's being team first. And you have to check your egos at the door when you come in here from wherever you came from. And he made some tough decisions. That's even sitting out some high impactful players or benching them or whatever. But it got the message across, and those guys were better players after they went through Dean Blaze.
Totally agree.
Coach, I wonder, you know, as you've gone on to coach, and so many more college players are going to the NHL now, and a lot of them are leaving early as well. How do you find the balance? You know, these kids are thinking ahead. It's just natural they're going to do that. But how do you find the balance to be able to keep them in the moment?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things coming at these young guys. You know, obviously social media, you know, being a drafted player, even an undrafted player with the attention if you're having a great college career here, and just keep the focus on the day-to-day ahead of you. And, you know, I think that comes, you mentioned about Dylan Simpson on our staff. We have Dane Jackson, Carl Gearing, who's coaching the American League and has done an amazing job with young players at the pro level. You know, we have a lot of coaches here that spend a lot of time with our players on a daily basis, whether it's structure, whether it's the individual development, and whether it's about what the future looks like. And we want the best for them. And, you know, I think Pierre, you know, I mean, you were with, Ottawa a few years ago, as far as we've had a number of our players come through our organization, getting to Ottawa and knowing what the right time is to go, with Tyler Clevin and Shane Pinto and Jake Sanderson and Jacob Bernard Docker. Like, those were situations where, you know, they spent 2 to 3 years here as far as maximizing their time on developing and not rushing it.
Jimmy, I just want everybody to know this is really important. I would call Coach and we would meet for lunch, or we would meet near the rink, and never once did he hesitate. And he knew I was there. I wasn't coming to say hello, making a social visit. I was coming to take his players. Yeah. And never once did he say a bad thing about anybody. And I'm so grateful for the time, Brad, that I had a chance to spend with you, because of the way you acted and the way you treated it as such a professional decision for those players. And that's for all the young kids out there. They need to know that when they go to a place like Dakota, especially with somebody that's experienced pro hockey like you, you're not going to hold them back if you think they're ready. And I know that for gospel, because I lived it, and I respect you so much for that.
100%. And, you know, we know that, like, if you're a first rounder, there's a chance you're going to be gone after a couple of years. Hopefully it's not 1 year, but after a couple of years. And then from there, it's usually 3 years. And if you have them 4 years, then you're blessed to do that. But it's usually 2 or 3 years. And you know what? We've got into this because we want to make sure that those players develop and have a chance and an opportunity, and we're not going to hold them back. And I think what you talked about as the open door policy, that's the best way to do it. Like, one way or the other, players are going to meet with NHL GMs or executives or agents or whatever. They're going to meet them anyways. At the end of the day, you know, as long as we're in the know as far as when that is, and, you know, if we can be a part of those discussions.
Well, that's why I always reached out to you, Coach. That's why I did it, out of respect to you into the program. It worked. I think it worked well. There were no hard feelings, I didn't think, anywhere. No.
You wouldn't be here with us right now, right? Coach, I gotta ask you too, and you don't have to name a player, but have you ever had a situation like that where a player's thinking about going pro and he has the chance, and maybe he changed his mind, and why was it, do you think, that the player changed his mind? You don't have to name a player, but just an example of that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. You know what? I think there have been a few that have come back an extra year just because it made sense, and in retrospect, it was the right move. Mm-hmm. You know, and I can probably name a couple that probably left a year early and wish they would have stayed another year and probably would have been better for them. But hindsight's 20/20. You never know how that's going to go, and you don't know what's not going to be on the other side of the fence. And I think just genuinely, if you connect with players and know that that they think that you're on their side and you're doing what's best for them, they're going to genuinely listen to you. And I think at the end of the day, there's extenuating circumstances with different things why they maybe want to leave. But for the most part, I think, if you build that relationship and that connection, usually it turns out the right way.
Coach, I got to ask you, how much do you miss having University of Minnesota, University of Wisconsin, Michigan State? How much do you miss having the chance to play against them on a regular basis?
Hey, we're trying, man. Like, I know, obviously the big intervened and they made their own league, and we made our own league in the NCHC with some really good members here. But what we do at North Dakota here, we're allowed 10 non-conference games a year, and we've had it in a contract with Minnesota that we're playing them every year. 2 games at home 1 year, 2 games at their place the next year, and it alternates. We just signed a contract with going to be doing it with Wisconsin down the road here.
That's great. That's outstanding. Nice.
So obviously with Mike Hastings and his group here, we played them this year and we beat them in our rink the first time in a long time that we've played them. We got them there, and now we're going to be playing them again. And you know what? We've got some potential series that are hooked up, some destination games and different things like that with Michigan State and different other Big Ten members.
Jimmy, I got to tell you, so Coach does a really good thing. They call them destination games. So when I was working for Ottawa, I went and watched them play in Nashville. Mm-hmm. And the building sold out. I'm not kidding. They played Penn State in Nashville, and the building sold out. And I'm going to say there's 16,000 people from North Dakota. I'm going to say there's 1,000 people from Happy Valley. Now, that's not a knock on Penn State. It shows you how Dakota travels.
Right.
And what I said to the person that I was with, I said, "Good night to be a robber in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Be a good night." And I think you go to Vegas too, don't you, Coach? You guys do a destination game in Vegas?
Yeah, we did Vegas a couple times. We did Nashville. We're going to be announcing here soon. We're going to be going to Austin, Texas here in a couple years. So
cool. I wonder why.
Yeah, but we're like I said, when you talked about Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, I don't know what that seats, around 20 grand, 20,000. Like we had it near capacity, and you're right, it was all green, white, and black, and
it was unbelievable.
Our fans, and they love to have a good time as well.
It's funny you say that, guys, because when I would remember, I went to, I don't know if it was a semifinal. No, it was the final, I think, when North Dakota beat BC in a national championship in Providence, 2000. And you would think it would be all BC because they're so close to Boston. It was 3/4 North Dakota in that place. I'll never forget that. Just a sea of green, and they were all in the bars everywhere, having a great time. Yeah, they definitely travel well.
Yeah, they do, and we're blessed for that. I know they spend a lot of time and money come to city of Grand Forks, but they travel on the road. There's going to be a few in Miami here tonight in Oxford.
That's great. Nice. That's great.
Coach, before we let you go, too, you look ahead at what you got this season right now. What are you telling the players in terms of what they need to keep doing to stay the course?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you know what. Hockey's such a long season, and there's a few ups and downs in the seasons. We've had more ups and downs, but just don't take things for granted here. Like things are going really good right now. It's one of those things that you got to keep your foot on the gas, and you got to prove it the next day. And we had a really impactful series against Denver last year. It was really emotional. Sweeping the weekend. Now, what do you do this weekend? And what do you do? What do you do to get to that bar? And I told the guys today in pregame meal, they set the bar. As far as what we can do against Denver, against a really good opponent, a really good rival, and that was at home. And one of our players, Jake Livanovich, outstanding freshman. This is a freshman saying this.
Good freshman player.
Wow. Yeah, he was defenseman of the month in our league here, and he had a soundbite from one of the press conferences here earlier this week here, and he goes, "You know what?" He said, "Good teams win at home, but great teams win on the road." And I thought that was so on for a young guy to say that, and that was my today was like tonight. Hey, we have an opportunity. We won at home last weekend. We have an opportunity to try to do something special this weekend. Let's be a great team. Let's win on the road here.
That's great. That's great to hear from a young kid too. Wow.
That's awesome. Hey, Coach, the only thing I regret about all my trips to Grand Forks now, Whitey's isn't in East Grand Forks anymore. I miss Whitey's.
I know Whitey's, and they changed the name of it too. Like I said, at the end of the day, that was an iconic place back in the day. But we'll have to get you back up here again. There's other good spots.
Oh, Coach, don't worry. I'll be up soon. I can't wait to see you. I really can't. Look forward to it. Thank you for your time, Brad. Yeah. Really appreciate it.
All right. Good luck tonight, Coach. That's Coach Brad Berry of North Dakota. Join us here on Campus Friday on the eye test. I'll tell you, Pierre, if he wanted, he could be a pro coach too, I think. But,
look at all the breaking news there. So now they're going to play Minnesota every year. They're going to play Wisconsin every year. They're trying to do a destination game with Michigan State. They love to get Michigan on the schedule. So you see that now, and you talk about growing the game. I'm not kidding you. When they went to Nashville, I was sitting there. I was scouting. I was watching Clevin, and I was watching Sanderson. We already had Bernard Docker out. Pinto was already out. So I was watching those guys to see, if they were actually ready to make the jump. I thought both of them were. Sanderson came out that year. Clevin stayed another year. Now he's playing in the American Hockey League and doing a great job, by the way, playing for David Bell down in Belleville. But I'm just telling you, they care in Dakota about growing the game. And if you're a hockey fan and you have a chance to go for a weekend series at the Ralph, you got to go.
I got it.
I'm just telling you, Jimmy, I love the NHL. I love the NHL. I love Major Junior. I love Junior. I love all hockey. But I'm going to the Ralph is a unique opportunity that everybody should have to experience once.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm making this college rink bucket list, Pierre, so that's in there.
I'm going to be your chaperone when you go there. I can't let you go there alone. You get too much trouble.
We don't need the Irish guy going in there, eh?
No, I'll take care of you there. Coach knows. Whitey's was one of my favorite places. Can I tell a quick story, Jimmy?
Of course, we love them.
Okay. So in 2005, I brought my father, who spent all his summers growing up there in Grand Forks. There was a family farm. And so during World War II, he was a 14-year-old kid, and 3 of his brothers were fighting in the Pacific Theater. My Uncle Bernard, my Uncle Pat, my Uncle Eric. So there were 8 kids in their family. And my dad was working on this grain farm with all these hired men. It was about 6,000 acres. He was 14 years old. And at the end of the day, VJ Day happens, and my dad remembered that from where he was and what he was doing. And so go to 2005. So we're talking a lot of years after.
Yeah.
We bring him to the World Junior in 05, and we were actually having dinner at Whitey's with Gord Miller and Bob McKenzie. And we start East Grand Forks is in Minnesota, and there's a bridge across the Red River, and it brings you into Grand Forks. So we were walking across the bridge. It was about 35 below zero, Jimmy. It wasn't cold. And right in the middle of the bridge, my dad stops. And so Bob and Gord, we're all freezing. I'm freezing too. And he goes, "Well, what are you doing?" He goes, "I want to tell you guys a quick story." And we're like, "Whoa, this is crazy." He says, "I will never forget standing right here on this bridge, VJ Day, 1945. My 3 brothers were coming home. Everybody was shooting fireworks here. And I saw a young guy jump off the bridge and drown right from here on VJ Day." And my dad never forgot it. And he never brought it up in our family till I was walking across the bridge with him that night. And it brought me back to when he was 14 years old. And you could see he was emotional about it. And Bob and Gord were like, "Whoa, that is pretty amazing," and it just, it's someplace it's near and dear to my heart just because of the relationship I had with my dad. It's pretty neat,
That is special, Pierre. And, I'll tell you too, I look at, you talking about these destination games. I was unaware of that, Pierre. I think that's great.
They're so creative there. I just can't say now. There's so many great look at we've had so many good coaches on, whether it's Jay Pandolfo at Boston University, whether it's Greg Brown at BU. We can keep going down. Greg Carville at UMass Amherst. We've had Ben Barr, University of Maine, like all these great coaches.
Did you signed an extension, by the way?
Just signed an extension. I texted with him this morning about his extension. I was so happy for him. And we've had but I can tell you one thing about Dakota that's different than all these schools. There's no pro hockey in Dakota. There is none.
That is the pro hockey.
They are the pro, and they don't have big time Division I football. They don't have big time Division I basketball. Dakota hockey is the entire state.
Oh yeah,
it is the entire state, and it is unbelievable. It's unbelievable to go to a game there.
And we'll talk about another time too, Pierre, because I think it'd be a great topic to delve into. That whole thing where you're saying now that they might be able to take junior players. I mean, that's huge. That's huge.
It's going to be a game changer for college hockey. It's going to create some problems for some teams that don't have good vision. I'm talking about the administrators and the athletic people, and the teams that have, or the schools that have vision and aren't afraid of having a good, strong vision. They're going to do well. They're going to do well because you're going to have to change how you do business.
Yeah.
You don't change how the biggest mistake people make in hockey. This is how we've always done it, so we're going to keep doing it this way.
I hate that.
It doesn't work.
Anything in any business or walk in life to do that.
I can tell you in hockey, everybody's kind of vanilla.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I say that out of respect because I know most of the – but there's some guys that aren't. Like Glenn Sather was never vanilla.
No.
He never was.
No.
He ran on his own.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of guys that don't run with the herd.
Yeah, me too.
Brad Berry doesn't run with the herd.
No.
He doesn't. Yep. There are a lot of names on that roster that people say, where's that guy from? Who's that guy? What team? Where did he play junior? They got guys. They know how they want to fit their roster build on. You know what I mean? They know.
That's good to say. And I was unaware too. Jackson Blake is
it's Jason's son. Yeah.
Yeah. Jason Blake, Pierre, ironically, was with the New York Islanders when I got my first gig out of college and got into media. I was doing a media relations internship there that Greg Cronin got me. So that was 2001 season. And he was with the Islanders then. He was a key part of that team.
Yeah, and so Brad was actually just starting his coaching career at Dakota, I think, in 2000.
Right. That
so
was
there you go.
Yeah.
So you guys started at the same time.
And Baczynski was with the Bruins in 05-06, and I covered him for a season. He was great.
Brandon Baczynski was a really good player. He could score, man. He was a scorer. He's a Hobie Baker finalist. He was a really good scorer. But he is I think I blew you away on that one. He's the mayor.
That's crazy.
Well, the last time I got to tell you. Yeah. So I go in to meet Coach Barry because we're trying to get Sanderson out, and I don't think it's that deep a dive to get Clevin too. But I didn't want him to feel like we weren't including him in the talk.
Right.
So I go to Coach and I say, can I meet with you? And 100%. So I'm sitting in this restaurant in East Grand Forks, and it wasn't Whitey's. I just don't want to say the name because I don't want to start anything. Yeah. So I'm reading the newspaper, and it says Mayor Baczynski. And I'm like, what? This can't be Brandon Baczynski.
Yeah.
It is. It's him. He's the mayor. It was awesome. It was so good. I said to Brad, this is unbelievable. He goes, oh, yeah, it's pretty good.
Find out if you can, Pierre, because I remember we were helping her get it on. We were helping her promote it as she got it off the ground. If I remember correctly, his wife, I don't know if they're still together, but she was starting up a clothing business. Like
no, they're very much still together. They have two children. Yeah, they're very much together.
I wonder how that turned out because she was. I remember she was so excited about it. So we would kind of drop it in stories and promote it for her, and they were so grateful for it.
Oh yeah, no. He's a really good family guy, and yes, he's still married. Yep.
They were great. All right, you know what? We got a ton of questions, Pierre, and I wonder what a lot of people want to talk about right now today.
Montreal trade? Or Todd McLellan.
Yeah, and that too. There's a lot of stuff going down. Of course, Gary Bettman and Bill Daly and Marty Walsh all met the media in Toronto. So let's get over those questions right now, and we'll get your take on everything. All right, Justin LeBron, did Kent Hughes move too fast?
I don't think so.
I'm going to figure it out. One word, no.
I don't think so. The market could change pretty quick too. I think he's building off what happened with Calgary and Vancouver. And so if he couldn't get a nibble from Boston and he couldn't get a nibble from New York, and I bet you those were two teams that he was talking to, and maybe didn't get a nibble from Colorado, I think he said, you know what, the market might change.
Yeah.
So I think he actually did a good job. I really do.
And if I'm not mistaken, I saw on Twitter some of the quotes from his his press conference too, he made a good point too, saying, like you need to get out and dictate the market, not let it dictate you. And he gave the example of last year, Pierre, how things can change so fast. He said at this time last year, Ekholm and Orlov were not on the market. No. And then, a few weeks later, all of a sudden they pop up and Boston's grabbing him and Edmonton's grabbing Ekholm. So he said, you got to just feel it and go with it right then, because you might regret it later on.
Well, remember what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, maybe 10 days ago, whomever makes the best trade at the trade deadline in the West has a legitimate chance to win. So you saw what Vancouver did, right? Mm-hmm. Elias Lindholm. Now, who's in the West that just got a center that needed one? Winnipeg. They know.
Yep.
These teams know. They look at it every day. The general manager, how many times have I said to you, Jimmy, you got to be the biggest expert on your own team. You got to know your own team better than anybody. And when you come in every day and you look at that depth chart and you say, you know what? I just saw what Vancouver did. Darn it, we're not deep enough. Yeah. We don't have enough to go against them. So you got to do something, and you got to do it quick before the pricing changes again.
Yeah.
So I think that's not the last move, Jimmy. I have to think Colorado's on the clock right now in the West. I think Dallas is on the clock right now in the West.
Yep. Vegas.
Legitimately, like teams that, and I think Edmonton's got to still do something.
I do too.
So now it's going to be interesting to see where the price points go.
Now here, let's segue over. And by the way, too, Pierre, I know, and I agreed with you too. Just I want our viewers to know, we're both in agreement that we do think maybe Montreal could have got at least a body back.
I think it would have been, and I said this on Mitch Melnick's radio show, and again, not trying to be rude or disrespectful to the management people, but when you do what they did in Montreal, the players now know, okay, we're playing for next year. Yeah. They're going to not say that, but at the bottom of the end of the day, they know.
That's the signal. Yeah.
They just don't have enough manpower. They just don't. They know. They just know.
Interesting. It's going to be interesting. All right. Well, another team who made a big change, but it wasn't a trade, was the Los Angeles Kings. They fire Todd McLellan and bring in John Hiller. Did I get that right?
Jim Hiller.
Melnick did the same thing while I was listening, and I still did.
Yeah, he's such a good man. He started coaching the NHL with Mike Babcock in Detroit. He moved on and worked with the Islanders with Barry Trotz, and then when Barry got let go, he moved out. He moved out to LA. He was originally drafted by the New York Rangers, believe it or not. He's a power play specialist, kid that played college hockey, guy that played college hockey in Northern Michigan. Really good hockey man. Good opportunity for him. I said this to Mitch. I mean, it's in serious. Since 2008. So you go to 2008. McClellan's part of the Detroit Red Wings winning the Stanley Cup. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's the assistant coach, did all the games. It was a grind to the final. Then they play a hard series with Pittsburgh. He gets the job almost instantaneously in San Jose. Yeah. Since 2008 and winning the Stanley Cup, he's been a head coach in the NHL. He was in San Jose. He was in Edmonton. He's in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. Like, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I hate it when coaches get fired, but in this case, I think this is actually going to help Todd.
Yeah.
I think it's going to help him.
Reset.
Just re-energize, retool, get ready, prepare yourself. I don't think he goes to the top of the queue, Jimmy. I don't think he goes to the top, but I think he's right there. You know what I mean? With the other top guys. Yeah. I think Quenneville, once the league allows it, Joel Quenneville goes to the top of the list. Right? He does.
Yeah.
And all the guys out there that are listening that are coaches in the league, no disrespect meant, but Quenneville goes right to the top. And everybody in the league knows.
They understand that. Look at the resume. My question to you, Pierre, before we go back to the questions here is, okay, so he makes the coaching change, but as we agree, and it's usually the case, it's usually the players, not the coach, but you can't fire the whole team. But still, what if you're Rob Blake now? What are you doing? You got the trade deadline coming up.
Need a goalie.
I was just going to say you're shaky in net, and what are you looking at right now in terms of how do I know who I need to move out? Like,
I need to know how I get more out of Pierre-Luc Dubois. You don't have a problem with Kopitar. You don't have a problem with Deneau. You know, but then you go to the 3-hole. You don't have a problem with Blake Lizotte in the 4-hole.
Nope.
What are you getting out of the 3-hole?
Yeah.
You were supposed to get a lot because that's where he was, supposed to be able to light everybody up because he wasn't going to play in matchup situations, and you're not getting it. And so if I'm Rob, and I'm sure Rob and Luke have done this, Luke Robitaille and Rob Blake, I'm sure they brought the kid in numerous times and said, how do we help you get to another level? Because you got to get there.
Yeah.
At some point, Jimmy, it can't just be, well, this coach has been mean to me, or that coach has been mean to me, or I didn't like this city. Like at some point, you got to look in the mirror and say, okay, I had a chance in Columbus, it didn't work. I had a chance in Winnipeg, it didn't work. Now I'm in LA. How come it's not? You know what I mean, Jimmy? At some point, it can't just be everybody else. Sometimes it's got to be you.
He's got to look in the mirror. He really does. I mean, it's tough. He's in the first year of a 8-year, $68 million, $8.5 million cap contract. So they're stuck with each other, and he's got to recognize that and say, all right, I owe it to them. I mean, they believed in me. They went on. Look at the boatload they traded for him, and look what those guys are doing for the Winnipeg Jets now. He should be watching what Quentin Byfield's doing. Yeah, he's right there. He's right there to learn from.
He's playing so well. He's playing so hard, and everybody was like, "Oh, too much, too soon. This guy's better than him. That guy." No, you know what? Quentin Byfield's really good. He's really good.
Good. He's
just getting better all the time.
For sure. All right, let's go to more questions here. Pierre, what other moves do you anticipate from Hughes moving forward?
The goalie, Jake Allen, will be traded. I don't have any hesitation in that. I don't think Jake would have a problem with me saying this either. It's just he knows this contract's up. He's the oldest guy there. They signed Montembeault to an extension. They got Caden Primo's not playing enough. They need to develop him, and they got Jacob Fowler coming. So that's one. I don't see much else happening there, Jimmy. Do you? I just have a hard time believing they would trade Mike Matheson. I have a hard time believing that.
No, I think I don't know where that rumor came from. It makes no sense. And Pierre, I was just thinking about it on and off the ice. What a great fit he is for that team, because he's got enough experience now where he can help up with all these young defensemen coming in. He's also a Montreal kid. He understands the media, the demands there. He understands the culture, the fans. So it would make no sense to trade him. There's other players I could see going out, but he's not one of them. And as far as the goalie goes, Pierre, I would think that Hughes tries to dictate that market too, because it's going to act out. It's going to pick up. So I think he tries to strike first.
He might. The one thing I'd say is I don't know what Padford Beek's going to do. He's the wild card in this whole thing because he's got, we read, I got to stress this, Jimmy, it's what we read. It's not what you and I are reporting. It's what we read.
Exactly.
And so you read about Adam Henrique, you read about Frankie Vetrano, and we've talked about the player, and it's not because we think he should be traded, but if you're a contending team and you need a goalie, you want Gibson.
Yeah.
You do. Because they have the stall there. You want Gibson. Yeah. And I think he's got a chance to be a Stanley Cup winning goalie. Yeah. And I don't think I'm the only person that feels that way.
Interesting. Donovan Michaels suggests, I don't know if he's saying it just happened. I don't think so. I don't see it anywhere. But he suggests Jake Allen to Philly. I don't think that they'd be in the market for a goalie right now. I think Philly is kind of becoming a seller, Pierre, as opposed to a buyer. But they are going to need a goalie soon.
They are, but I think Philly's in a situation where they probably have another 7 to 8 days because they're still within that 10-point, even though they're in third place in the Metro. They're slip sliding the wrong way. They've lost 5 straight. So they probably got 5 to 10 days to play with before they recognize whether they're going to be a buyer or seller. I don't think they'll be an extreme buyer anyways, even if they are in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
But they may end up selling some guys. They might.
Yeah, and Scott Loughton's name has been out there lately from Darren Drager, but he's got a couple of years left on his term. All right, let's go to the next question. Habs this is from Vid Zombie. Habs have a few first-round picks over the next few years now. How does 2 firsts to Anaheim for Ziegler sound? Overpay?
Well, I don't know if it's overpay. It depends on where those first-round picks come. If they're top 10, I'd say yes, overpay. If they're not top 10, then I think you'd have to spread it out, but I would be interested in that based on what Montreal want. Now, I'm going to say this too. I wouldn't be rushing to overpay on any player in Montreal because you're still rebuilding. Zegers gets you points. There's no question he gets you points. But there's other stuff too, and I just don't know how comfortable he'd be playing in Montreal. I don't know that, but I just don't know how he's a kid from right near Fairfield County, Connecticut. Played for Fairfield, went to Boston University. I just don't know if there's a fit in Montreal or not. I just don't.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I'm going to keep my eyes on Zegers as well. I think he's one of the more interesting options out there.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the next question. Alex Evanovsky, with all these trades happening now, does a secondary market open up for teams that you wouldn't think would initially be sellers come March 8th, say Pittsburgh, Washington, St. Louis, or Minnesota, and Philly, like we just discussed?
So Jimmy and I were talking about Minnesota. They're almost in the same predicament as Philadelphia. They're starting to run out of time on the Mendoza line. So I would say at some point here, pretty quick, Billy Guerin's going to figure something out. I think St. Louis, much the same. Even though they made a coaching change just like Minnesota did, Drew Bannister's gone in there and done a nice job. Just don't know if they're going to have enough to get it across the finish line in the Western Conference. Pittsburgh, very much the same. Jimmy, we talked about that as well. And for Kyle Dubas, I think he wants to put his own imprint on the team. I really do. So one of the ways of doing that is making a splash at the trade deadline. And Washington, I think realistically knows they're close to being on the wrong side of the Mendoza line, and then they're going to have to do something too. They need to restructure the team in Washington. I think they know that. They've gotten older in a hurry, and they need to redo it. They really
need to build up the middle as well.
They know that. They know. And you know what? I like kind of what's gone on quietly in both Washington and Pittsburgh, only because you haven't seen a lot of leaking.
Nope.
So it tells me that everybody's kind of keeping a small circle. And when you do that, usually some stuff happens. It's positive for your team.
For sure. And I want to just say in Minnesota too, as I said to you off the air, Pierre, a name that I keep hearing, I actually said to you, I think he'd be a good fit for the Bruins, is Jacob Middleton. Good, tough, rugged depth defenseman. Could slide into their third period there. We'll see what happens. All right, next question. A asks, does Chychrun get traded? That's $1 million question too.
Yeah, well, just money-wise, see that what people need to look at, the cap changes a lot of things. And Jacob, I think if they moved him, it'd be more about a cap issue than it would be anything else.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. I mean, look at when I was in Ottawa, we were approached about Chychrun, and I just, at the time, told the people I worked with, I just didn't think it was going to be a fit because I saw where our contracts were going, and I thought financially it was going to be a problem.
Yep.
And now you see kind of where it is in terms of it being a problem. It's just, it's not because you can't play. It's just the money, and you got other guys you got to pay.
Yeah, no, it's not a knock on him, and they've got guys coming too.
So Shabbat. Here's the thing with Chychrun, and I coached his father in two cities, in Pittsburgh and Hartford, so I like the family a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You got Sanderson signed to a long-term deal, and you got Shabbat in the middle of a long-term deal, and they're both on the left side. Chychrun plays on the left side, and you got Tyler Clevin coming, who's on an entry-level contract.
I was just going to say that.
So I mean, it's tough, and nobody knows this kid's name. He's a righty. His name's Max Gannett. He's another guy coming. So if Ottawa does something, I think it's because of money. More than anything.
I'm going to say, Pierre, just my gut feeling. No, not reporting this. This is just a hunch. If he is available, keep an eye on Detroit would be my word there. The Red Wings.
No, I could see that though. That's sensible.
I just
that's you know what? The one thing I would say, the dirty little secret in the NHL that nobody really talks about, there's a whole lot of animosity between Ottawa and Detroit on the ice. They just don't. Whatever reason,
that could roadblock. Yep.
Hasn't been no relationship there for a long time,
That could roadblock. And by the way, that was I thought, Pierre, we were saying how the game stunk this week because everybody sort of set sail in their minds to vacation. I thought the one game that kept me glued was that Ottawa-Detroit game. It really did.
I agree. Hey, Ottawa, the first period outshot them 9-3 or 8-3, and they were down 1-0. And Ottawa pushed. I give them a lot of credit. I don't know what was said after the first period, but you could see they came out in the second. They pushed.
Yeah.
And you know what? You made a really good point to me, Jimmy. You texted me about Dylan Larkin, and Dylan is really gone to that leadership level he has to get to. And I really appreciate when I watch him do that. I really appreciate what he's doing.
Say that. Yep. I was just, it's been a joy to watch right now. He's starting to really, he knew he could get there, and he's pushing it now. I love it. All right, next question. Andrew G. Lindholm to the Canucks, Monahan to the Jets. Oilers are Stanley Cup faves. Canada on the up and up. It's true.
Yeah, hey, listen, it's definitely true.
And think about Montreal when they start to get better and they start to reach their potential.
How about Ottawa? Ottawa's going to get good. Ottawa's going to be good. I mean, Canada's going to be good. That being said, Colorado's good. Carolina's good. Tampa went to 3 straight final. Florida was in the final last year. There's a team that my friend Jimmy Murphy covers by the name of the Boston Bruins. They're pretty good. I think Chris Drury would tell you the New York Rangers are pretty good. So the problem is there are a lot of good teams, and the parity is insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
All right, next question. Enter tap. If Edmonton makes a significant move, do you believe this might disrupt the winning ways that they have now established?
No,
they're cognizant of that for sure.
You know what's amazing? Let's look at it this way. When Chris Knobloch went there and Paul Coffey was named assistant, there were a lot of people like, come on, no way. They're not going to make that big a difference. Come on. They've made a huge difference.
A huge difference.
And the players know it. And now the players trust the coaches and they really trust the management because the management made a call.
Yeah.
And the calls worked.
Yeah.
When you make the call and the call works, everybody believes. And so I think anything they would do would be seen as a positive for the team.
And remember, too, and he actually, good question, by the way, and Ken Holland actually addressed that the other day, Pierre, and he said he's always been that way, that he has to be very wary that it does not disrupt the chemistry. And he wasn't speaking just to this specific team and that they're on a win streak like this. He said, look, I came from Detroit. Think about all the teams he had to worry about disrupting there and how active he always was for them at the deadline and bringing in a good name and helping those teams. So it's not his first rodeo when it comes to that.
He learned a lot of that from Scotty Bowman, though, because that's what Sam Pollock used to do in Montreal. They'd always try to bring in an older guy that had never won the cup before, or a guy that maybe had won one but had a long stretch, and bring some enthusiasm and some confidence and street cred into the room. And it worked. It worked in Detroit. I think about Chelios going there. I think about Larry Murphy going in there. There are a bunch of them that I could think of off the top of my head. Fetisov going in there.
Yes.
Larry Onoff going in there. I mean, like Fetisov wasn't drafted by Detroit.
Yep.
Larry Onoff wasn't drafted by Detroit. So all these guys came in. I mean, it was brilliant managing by Jimmy Devellano, Kenny Holland, and Scotty Bowman. And it was brilliant coaching. But again, it's the Montreal Canadiens philosophy. Bring in one urgent guy usually at the deadline every year, and it helps you.
Those seem to work the best, Pierre. It's usually not the ones when you bring in a superstar. It's usually the ones when you bring in a guy that is that final piece in the dressing room. All right, next question. Stutzel for Hart. Does the NIL deal change the major junior kids being able to go to college? Craig Button discussed this.
Well, we just talked about it with Brad Berry. So the answer is yes, it does. And I know the college coaches are really talking about this now. I know the NCAA is talking about this now. It's a very serious thing. One of the things I was talking to somebody that I really respect this morning who's a hockey aficionado. And he said, what would you do? And I said, the first thing I'd do is I'd hire somebody that was called Director of Hockey Operations.
Mm-hmm.
And it would take the coaches out of the process in terms of going on the road, so to speak. It's almost what Brad Berry talked about. He said, my coaches are always with my players.
Mm-hmm.
And this Director of Hockey Operations would streamline the recruiting process. He'd have to be somebody that's connected to major junior, because I think one of the great growth places for hockey, and this drives Swedish people nuts, I think Sweden and Finland in particular are untapped markets for a lot of these colleges, and I think that's going to be the next big thing. Wow. I really do. I think that's going to be one, and if the major junior avenue ever opens up, it's going to change everything a lot. And Jimmy, again, you're talking to somebody that spent a lot of time on the road and somebody that really was aggressive on the recruiting trail. Let's say that. How about that? Okay.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting for sure. All right, we're going to take 2 more and we'll wrap it up. Randy Workman, who always asks great questions. Do you think there is a lot of pressure on the college kids to leave early for the pros? I'd say yes.
I'd say yes as well. But I can tell you this. One of the things I really admire about Steve Yzerman, when he was in Tampa and now that when he's in Detroit, he doesn't put pressure on guys to leave. And he never told me that. I heard that from people that worked for him.
Right.
So he believed that if a guy wanted to stay, let him stay. If a guy wanted to leave and they thought he was good enough to leave, take him out. But don't push the kid to make a decision. Now, not every team is like that.
No.
Not every team is.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll use a case of Joe Nieuwendyk. I don't think Calgary Flames pressured Nieuwendyk to leave. I think Joe just knew after his second year at Cornell, I'm good enough to go.
Yeah.
And he went. And, the rest is history. And he was phenomenal. Same with Chelios when he was at Wisconsin. I mean, you go down the line, Brian Leach when he was at Boston College. There are tons of guys that have left early and some guys that have left later. It's not one size fits all.
No, it's not an exact science at all. All right, final question here. A to Z Me says, does Pierre think that Hudson will see some NHL time later this year? Well, you've been adamant that he will.
I do. I think he comes up at the end of Boston University's season, whenever that might be, and he stays in Montreal when they sign him. And nobody's told me this. I just know in my heart of hearts what I think he can do. He gets a taste of the NHL life. As soon as the Canadian season is over, whether they make the playoffs or they don't make the playoffs, I think Laval will make the playoffs, which is great for them, and a great job by Coach Uhl there and his assistants, Berger and Coach LaPerriere.
Yep.
But I would say that once that's over, he probably goes down and tries to help them go really deep into the American Hockey League playoffs. But I do think he gets a taste of the NHL this year.
I think in general, Pierre, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me, we're going to see a larger college infusion in March and April into the NHL.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think into the AHL as well. I just think that it's one of those kind of after COVID and everything else, more guys are kind of dropping out of the workplace. It's kind of a weird deal right now in the league. So it's going to be, I'm kind of watching that really close for a lot of reasons, but I think you're going to see some stuff at the NHL level and at the American League level as well.
For sure. All right, Pierre. Well, listen, great show as always. We want to thank the viewers there for all your good questions. We love that, and thank our production crew as well. And Pierre, what an interview again. I love these on-campus Fridays. Good to talk to Brad Berry and the University of North Dakota. Thank you to him for taking the time on a game night. And remember that, everybody out there, these coaches are doing this on game nights because colleges play essentially every Friday.
Yeah, so, that's so good, Jimmy, that you acknowledge really that. Thank you for doing that because, we had Coach Donato on last weekend from Harvard just before they played Cornell.
Yeah.
And the first thing he did is he texted Jimmy to say, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. Like, these guys are really good, honorable, hardworking guys. They care a lot about the game. They want to get back to the game. All I want to say is to everybody that I see whenever I go to Grand Forks, thank you. I can't thank you enough for your hospitality, your kindness, and how much fun I have when I'm there because I have a ton of fun when I'm there.
Ready. Murph's coming too next time. All right. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Have a great weekend.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.